Egypt dispatches its 26th aid convoy to Gaza amid Israeli restrictions blocking medical supplies and limiting fuel entry. And in China, Egypt's Prime Minister participates at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Plus Summit. Join us on our special coverage on Qnews, where we tackle the latest developments around the world.
والله العظيم ولا حبة رز، والله العظيم ولا حبة عدس. ما فيش أكل، ما فيش شرب، عندي بنت 2.5 صارت تصفر.
Egypt has dispatched its 26th aid convoy under Zed al-Izza, or Provision of Honor, from Egypt to Gaza initiative to Gaza via Kharm Abu Salim border crossing. The second batch of the 26th humanitarian aid convoy has departed Egypt for Gaza via the Kharm Abu Salim border crossing following the entry of 80 trucks from the first batch, with truck arrivals ongoing. Current convoy numbers in the hundreds, loaded with diverse goods including baby formula, flour, oil, sugar, cheese, canned meals and legumes. Today, 180 trucks entered Gaza through the same crossing. However, the Israeli occupation forces continue to block medical supplies and allowed only 3 fuel trucks in. Meanwhile, hundreds of tons of aid have been destroyed due to the Israeli restrictions on entry. Aid delivery to Gaza faces major hurdles, including Israeli inspections, restricted crossings, security threats, and damaged infrastructure, worsening humanitarian needs. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that Israel launched a joint military and Shin Bet operation targeting Hamas spokesperson Abu Ubaidah. Netanyahu expressed uncertainty about the outcome, but hoped that Abu Ubaidah had been eliminated. He added that the operation reflects Israel's ongoing efforts to strike key figures within Hamas. Netanyahu's remarks came during a government meeting emphasizing the significance of this targeted effort, while the final results remain unknown. Later, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz announced the assassination of the Hamas spokesman Abu Ubaidah. American website Axios reported that the Israeli government is seriously discussing the annexation of parts of the West Bank in response to Western countries' recognition of a Palestinian state. The report added that the Israeli move will depend on the stance of U.S. President Donald Trump regarding the annexation, noting that the Trump administration was not yet taken a clear position on Israel's potential annexation of parts of the West Bank. 7 crossings link Gaza to the outside world, yet all remain shut, blocked by the Israeli occupation forces. This deliberate blockade fuels a humanitarian crisis, with Egypt striving tirelessly to deliver aid and uphold hope amid relentless oppression.
On the map, there are 7 gateways linking Gaza to the outside world. In reality, every gateway is sealed, every door is locked, and the culprit is the Israeli occupation army. In northern Gaza lies the Beit Hanun crossing, the only outlet for the Strip's residents to the West Bank. In the east lies the El Shugaiya crossing, closed by Israel about 15 years ago. It used to be designated for fuel entry to Gaza. There is also the El Muntar crossing, used for commercial goods between Gaza and Israel, which the Israeli occupation forces shut down in 2011 and turned into a military site. To the east of Khan Yunis and Deir el-Balah lies the El Qarara crossing, which only opens for the passage of the occupation's military forces. The El Auda crossing is located east of the Palestinian city of Rafah. This is one of the smallest crossings designated for imports and building materials. Karm Abu Salim crossing lies in southern Gaza as the tri-border between Palestine, Israel, and Egypt. It is used for transferring goods and fuel and sometimes serves as an alternative to Rafah crossing. Finally, the Rafah land crossing sits at the southernmost point of Gaza, directly bordering Egypt, and is designated for the movement of people and goods. Before 2005, Gaza was under direct occupation. After Israel's unilateral withdrawal and the signing of the crossings agreement between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, the crossings were opened, and Rafah was reactivated under the supervision of the Palestinian Authority and in the presence of a European Union mission. But about 2 years later, the turning point came when Hamas overthrew the Palestinian Authority, the EU mission withdrew, and PA representatives were expelled from the Palestinian side of the crossing. Despite this, Egypt, guided by its unwavering belief in the Palestinian cause, worked to keep the crossing operational. Then came the events of October 7th and the subsequent Israeli assault on Gaza and its people. The Palestinian side of the crossing was repeatedly bombed. Israel then tightened its grip on the Palestinian side completely, asserting control over all gateways. But Egypt did not stand idle in the face of this aggression. Through multiple channels, Egypt moved with full force to stop the war, deliver aid, and revive the peace process based on the two-state solution. After intensive efforts, hope was restored for the people of Gaza. Hundreds of Egyptian trucks moved from Rafah into Gaza, loaded with food, medicine, and aid. But Israel, the occupying power, stood in the way, obstructing the flow of aid. Settler militias launched attacks on 8 convoys with the support of the occupation army. Then, in May 2024, the occupation authorities themselves directly blocked the entry of aid, halting it entirely until now, repeating the tragedy. Once again, Egypt intensified its efforts, working with all parties to force Israel to allow the entry of aid, ultimately compelling the occupying power to give in to demands to let humanitarian aid into Gaza. Yet while Egypt continues to shoulder the burden, the Brotherhood's propaganda machines spread lies, ignoring those who kill innocents and attacking those who have worked tirelessly for years to resolve the crisis. The undeniable truth is that the crisis is not only about aid and crossings. Despite the starvation of thousands, it is a crisis engulfing the entire Gaza Strip, a relentless attempt to annihilate and displace its people, a plan Egypt has firmly rejected and stood against. The solution lies with the occupying power, Israel, and its backers among the major powers, led by the United States. Amid doubts and international abandonment, Egypt's stance remains a symbol of steadfastness and loyalty to Palestine, stands unshaken by political storms, a promise never forgotten to Palestine and its people.
According to Israeli media, 10 Israeli families have recently moved into a new settlement neighborhood in the occupied West Bank. This marks the first expansion in the Kiryat Arba area in decades. The local council stated the goal is to sever the geographical connection between Palestinian lands from El Khalil to the Negev desert, reinforce ties between Israeli settlers in the region. All Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank are considered illegal under international law. For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Dr. Ayman Al-Raqab, Professor of Political Science at Al-Quds University. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on Qnews. Sir, firstly, let's start off by asking, how do you view Israel's decision to block humanitarian aid from entering the Gaza Strip as part of its wide-scale military strategy in the area, using, starvation as a weapon of war?
After greetings to you and your dear viewers, the Israeli occupation has decided to implement its military operations, specifically in Gaza City and its north, putting a plan of blockade and refraining the aid and even the airdrops into the Gaza City and its north. Such a plan pushing forward of using the starvation weapon that is internationally criminalized as a plan of pushing the people forward into the north, to the south. Part of the people never searched for places to stay in, but they never found a place to stay in. In an area that is very narrow, that does not exceed of 20 kilometers of this amount of the people. So therefore, the occupation is using a very harsh offensive in the north of Gaza. So the occupation forces decided to blockade the area in order to push the forward into the south. This matter is violated the international conventions and laws, but unfortunately the occupation forces is above the law.
Well, sir, following the Israeli announcement of the assassination of Abu Ubaidah, in your opinion, how do you perceive this incident? Can Abu Ubaidah be regarded as a symbol of, resistance against occupation rather than just a spokesperson for Al-Qassam brigades?
In general of the wars, media personnel and the journalists are recruited. But the occupation forces, considering them are military targets, Abu Ubaidah became an icon for those who are following in the matter. Most dangerously, that Netanyahu is talking about this matter. And the military minister is talking about it, such a great concern and exhilaration of the announcement is considering the state of failure of the occupation forces. Most importantly, Yahya Sinwar was assassinated before and were very prominent military leaders, but never got the same concern and attention as we've seen in the assassination of Abu Ubaidah. I consider it, as I indicated, as very ironically and an evidence of failure of the occupation forces, and it is just for again an point against the propaganda.
Okay, sir, now the American news website Axios reported that Israel is seriously considering annexing parts or the West Bank in general How do you see the development, and will there be any sort of counter reaction from the international community towards this illegal move?
Netanyahu's government is the far right wing of the government that include the elements of settlement, as Summit has announced the establishment of hundreds of settlements that trisect Bethlehem on the or from the Jerusalem. This was seen by the whole world. The threat by Symmetry to the world, the more there is recognition of the Palestinian state, the more we establish settlement that gives an indication of pressure made by the occupation forces. So, most notably, the Israeli occupation statehood was established in return of having an Arab state. The division resolution issued in the 70s stipulated the establishment of Jewish state on 52% of the Palestinian and other Arab countries of 46%. The whole world has recognized the state since the establishment of the occupation state. But in light of such development, we are requesting to the establishment of the Palestinian state on only 22% of the territories, but rejected by the occupation forces. So, and they rejected the international recognition. So I think it is required to have a very serious international stance, and unfortunately, it's only taken a moral decision in light of supporting the U.S. To the Israeli occupation through using the veto in several occasions.
Okay, well, sir, now, other than Western partners, is it possible that, for instance, the United States administration would approve the Israeli plan or proposal to annex parts of the West Bank? Is this something that the Palestinians are fearful of?
Fortunately, it is very clear that the U.S. stance is supporting the operation of annexation. They talk very clearly that they not reject the annexation and the expansion of the territories. Most dangerously, Trump Barack's U.S. envoy talked for the first time for the lands of Israel that haven't been expanded yet, and peace agreement should include Lebanon and would give an evidence of the new American concept of the conflict, particularly as Trump promised the Jews during his election campaign to expand the occupation state. So they clearly approved the expansion in different areas, but I think the U.S. fortunately never supported the establishment of settlement, but at least is supporting what has been doing by the occupation forces.
Okay, so if we can go back again to Gaza. Now, when it comes to the ceasefire agreement, do you think that the chances of reaching a ceasefire agreement have become nearly impossible at this point in time?
Through such an intervention, there is a small security cabinet meeting by the attendance of all its leaders to discuss the war upon Gaza and the truce. And if there is a desire by the occupation forces and its leaders to take the truce in order to achieve two goals. Firstly, to gain 10 captives from Gaza, and in the meantime to gain time to regroup the occupation army, as it has a desire of more times to achieve more goals. Firstly, more aerial bombardment and to pave the way on the land for to storming Gaza, and secondly to regroup in the alliance of occupational army and its mechanism, so it has more of reserves and to rearrange their people to execute the operation of Gaza. Therefore, all options are on the table. I think it will be seen a dramatic change in this matter in reaching a calm and then to return, unfortunately, to back to the war. Particularly, there is an American vision for Netanyahu to achieve his desire to move forward to execute, or rather to depopulate the people of Palestine into the south.
Okay, thank you so much. That was the Professor of Political Science of Al-Quds University, Dr. Ayman Al-Raqab. Thank you for joining us here on Q News. And now we move to China, where leaders gather in Tianjin for a Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, shaping regional cooperation and strategy. Egypt's Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has taken part in an official dinner hosted by the Chinese President Xi Jinping, marking the beginning of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Plus summit events. At the start of the dinner, held in honor of the attending leaders and heads of state and government, President Xi delivered a speech in which he highlighted the challenges facing the current international order and the positive role the Shanghai Cooperation Organization can play in addressing those challenges. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli has announced plans to produce 10 million cubic meters of desalinated water per day within 5 to 6 years, focusing on localizing the industry. Meeting with a Chinese desalination expert at the SCO Summit, Madbouli discussed scalable renewable energy powered technology to boost Egypt's water supply. Facing severe water scarcity and heavy reliance on the Nile, Egypt is expanding desalination through a national strategy launched in 2017. The country currently operates under 100 plants, mainly in coastal areas, aiming to reduce costs and meeting growing demand. For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the economic expert, Dr. Mohammed Al-Shawatfi. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. Let's start off by asking you, how does Egypt's involvement in the SCO Plus Summit align with its broader economic and geopolitical strategy?
Greetings to you and dear viewers. Egypt's engagement in the Shanghai Operation Organization through several factors. Firstly, such a gathering or a bloc representing a great economic diversified gatherings along with a very economic bloc, as it includes the three strongest economic powers, such as China, India, and Russia, that represent more than 26% of the global GDP. Therefore, as Egypt, by this case, to attempt to reconstruct, to attract investment through which we may have some sort of interaction and a summit of such a summit between Egypt in different productions. Firstly, to develop the digital transformation industry, and in the meantime to minimize the reliance of U.S. currency in the Egyptian trade transactions. Besides, to to bolstering the fuel supplies. Particularly, Egypt would target the localization or the industrialization of several countries such as India and Russia. That would require to rely on a strategic in manufacturing such as the automate industries and the new renewable energy and in the field of the trade exchange between the Egyptian state and such countries through the national currencies.
So, sir, do you think that there's an economic opportunity that could be gained here from Egypt by deeper cooperation with the SCO member states?
Absolutely. There is cooperation and a joint interest between these countries and Egypt, considering Egypt is preparing itself as a very logistic hub to supply the whole world through the ports that were established. Hence, China, India, and other countries may export its production through such dualistic areas, along with the transit trade of the Egyptian state. And Egypt will benefit of the provision of the foreign currencies along with the labor market and to be an exportation market for these countries into Africa and Arab countries, and then will establish the economic or the integration economy between the great countries of the bloc, as they are the same state members of the BRICS.
So, sir, how might Egypt possibly leverage its participation to attract more Chinese investments and infrastructure projects?
For Egypt, it may benefit of the investment of such countries in general, particularly from China, considering China has a development zone in the Suez Canal area. Egypt is targeting to attract the Chinese industries, particularly in the automotive and the other products, and hence so China would support such an area of Chinese industries in order to have some sort of alliance between the Chinese Egyptian private sector by establishing industries in the Suez Canal zone and other areas that Egypt prepared to attract the very diversified manufacturers from the great economies such as China.
So in what ways can the SCO support Egypt's goals for economic diversification as well as reaching the Sustainable Development Goals?
In fact, this matter is a very important point. Egypt is targeting to have a sustainable development and to have some sort of Egyptian economy diversification through which a cooperation between the SCO's member state and Egypt in the field of the renewable energy, such as the hydrogen energy. In the meantime, to benefit from the digital economy and its development, and to rely on the artificial intelligence and the IT in the field of building in the modern industries. Egypt is targeting to develop its modern industries, and these countries are very advanced in such fields. In addition, that Egypt is considered one of the most important countries to import the wheat, and Russia is the main exporter for Egypt.
Your point there is clear, sir, but thank you. We're out of time. That was Dr. Mohammed Al-Shawatfi from Cairo, the economic expert. Thank you for joining us here on Q News. This brings us to the end of our special coverage for tonight. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Qnews EGYs. Thank you for watching.